The war had gone differently than anyone expected. Robb Stark, the young wolf, had outsmarted the Lannisters in the Riverlands. His direwolf, Grey Wind, had torn through enemy camps, and his bannermen were loyal. But it was in the Battle of Ashfield, a lesser-known battlefield near King's Landing, that everything changed. Jaime Lannister had already been captured. Tywin was still fighting in the west, and Joffrey Baratheon, King of the Seven Kingdoms, had left the safety of the Red Keep to inspire his soldiers. Arrogant, proud, foolish. He was not ready for what was waiting. Robb's scouts spotted the royal carriage. A small group of gold cloaks guarded it. No one expected a direct hit, not even the Lannisters. But Robb didn't hesitate. He sent Lord Karstark and Great John Umber with 50 men to circle from behind while he attacked from the front. In less than an hour it was over. Grey Wind had pinned Ser Boros Blount to the muddy ground. The gold cloaks surrendered, and there, shaking and screaming inside his carriage, was Joffrey, prince, king, liar. He begged, he screamed, he cried. "You don't know what you're doing," Joffrey shouted, spit flying from his mouth. "I am your king. Unhand me or I'll have your heads." Robb stood outside the door, sword in hand, looking at the boy king with quiet fury. "You murdered my father," he said, his voice calm but cold. "You'll answer for it." They didn't kill Joffrey on the spot. That surprised many. The North remembered Ned Stark's death. They wanted blood. But Robb had a different idea. He would take the boy to Riverrun. He would put him on trial in front of the bannermen of the North and Riverlands. He would show Westeros what justice looked like. Joffrey was locked in chains, surrounded day and night. Arya Stark, finally found by the Brotherhood without banners, was brought to Riverrun days after. When she saw Joffrey in chains, she didn't cry. She stared at him like she was staring at a wolf who had once bitten her. "You don't look like a king now," she said softly. "You look like a rat." Catelyn Stark stood beside Robb the day they prepared for the trial. She still mourned Ned. The pain of her husband's death was a shadow in her eyes, but she supported her son. "This is not just justice for your father," she reminded Robb. "This is justice for the realm. The people must see it done properly." Robb agreed, but deep down, he knew this trial wouldn't be clean. Tensions grew. The bannermen were restless. The river lords wanted blood. The northern lords wanted revenge. Some, like Lord Karstark, said it was weakness to even give Joffrey a trial. "Hang him from the walls and be done with it," he growled. But Robb refused. "We are not like the Lannisters," he told them. "We do not kill boys in secret and call it honor." Word spread fast across the realm. Ravens flew from Riverrun to every major house. "The king in the north has captured Joffrey Baratheon. He lives, but not for long." In King's Landing, Cersei Lannister screamed for vengeance. She slapped every maester, yelled at every knight, and even threatened the High Septon. "They have my son," she cried. "They have the king, and they dare to put him on trial like a thief?" Tyrion, now acting as hand, tried to calm her. "Screaming won't bring him back," he told her, pouring himself wine. "Robb Stark is playing a dangerous game, but he's also opening the door to something even more dangerous." "What?" she snapped. "Justice," Tyrion replied. "And if the people start asking for it, we may not survive it." The hall at Riverrun had never seen a sight like this before. Lords and ladies packed into every corner, their eyes locked on the chained boy in the center of the room. Joffrey Baratheon, once the most powerful king in Westeros, now looked smaller than ever. His golden hair was dirty, his lips cracked, and his purple eyes flickered with hatred and fear. He wasn't silent. No, not Joffrey. "You'll all hang for this," he spat. "You think this is justice? You're traitors, every one of you. My mother will burn your castles to the ground." But no one moved. Robb Stark stood tall before him, cloaked in direwolf furs, his sword strapped to his back. He didn't flinch at Joffrey's words. His voice was even when he spoke. "Joffrey Baratheon," he said, "you stand accused of murder, treason, and cruelty against the realm. You ordered the execution of Lord Eddard Stark, Warden of the North, under false charges. You ordered the killing of children, King Robert's bastards, across the city. You tortured the people of King's Landing, abused your position, and ruled with fear." "I am the king," Joffrey roared. I can do as I please. You are not the king, Robb said quietly. Not anymore. A hush fell. Catelyn Stark sat beside her son, her hands folded tightly. She didn't speak. Her eyes were cold, watching the boy who had destroyed her family. On her other side sat Arya, her jaw clenched tight, fingers wrapped around the hilt of the small dagger Gendry had given her. The trial had begun. Robb had gathered a small council of judges, men from both the Riverlands and the North. Lord Tully, Lord Manderley, Lady Mage Mormont. They were not just witnesses of war, but people who had suffered under the Lannisters' cruelty. One by one, they brought out witnesses. Sir Dantos Hollard, drunk and trembling, was the first. He beat Sansa Stark in front of the court, he said, voice shaking, with his hands, with his belt, just because she cried. Murmurs of disgust filled the hall. Next came a baker from Flea Bottom, who told of how Joffrey's men had dragged her husband away for speaking ill of the crown. They hung him in the square, she whispered, for saying bread cost too much. And then came Sansa Stark. She stood in the hall, pale as snow, her hands shaking, but her voice was steady. He made me watch, she said. When they cut off my father's head, he forced me to stand there. He said he wanted to see if I'd cry. When I did, he laughed. That night, he had Sir Meryn beat me because I didn't smile at dinner. Joffrey sneered at her. Liar! You were my pet. I kept you alive, didn't I? That's more than I should have done. Grey Wind growled low from Robb's side. The entire room felt the tension shift. Robb rose slowly, stepping toward the center. Do you deny the charges? I deny nothing, Joffrey shouted, his chains rattling. Your father was a traitor. He confessed. He plotted to steal my crown. You forced that confession, Catelyn said sharply, her voice the first sign of heat since the trial began. You lied and killed for a throne you never earned. He wasn't even Robert's son, Arya said coldly. He's a bastard of Jaime Lannister. The word bastard hung in the air like smoke. Everyone knew it. The truth had been whispered in the halls of every noble house for years, but now in open court, the lie had been shattered. Robb turned to his council. Shall we vote? Lady Mormont stood first. He is guilty. I say death. Lord Manderley nodded. Guilty. Death. Lord Tully hesitated, but only for a moment. He deserves justice. Death. And then Robb looked at his mother. Lady Stark? Catelyn stared at Joffrey for a long time. She saw a scared, cruel boy who had destroyed her husband, her daughter's innocence, and helped tear the realm apart. She closed her eyes. Death! Joffrey began to scream. No, no, you can't do this. I'm the king. My mother will kill you all. You can't. Robb stepped forward. Silence! But just as the guards moved to take Joffrey away for execution, a raven arrived, panting, flapping wildly, bearing a black seal. It was from King's Landing. Tyrion Lannister had made his move, and what the letter contained could change everything. The hall quieted as Robb took the raven scroll in his hand. His eyes scanned the wax seal, black, stamped with the Lion of House Lannister. He broke it open. The silence in the room was so deep it felt like even the walls were waiting to breathe. He read the letter once, then again. His jaw tightened, his fingers curled. What does it say? Catelyn asked. Robb looked up, voice grim. Tyrion Lannister offers terms. He demands the immediate release of Joffrey, or he will execute Sansa Stark and burn Riverrun to the ground with wildfire. The hall erupted in gasps and shouting. He's bluffing, Lord Umber bellowed. They won't touch the girl. He's got wildfire, yelled Lady Mormont. That's not a threat you ignore. Catelyn's face went pale, her eyes flicking to Sansa, who stood trembling, lips parted but unable to speak. She had survived so much, to be used again, as a piece in someone else's game. Tyrion's words were clever, calculated. If my nephew is harmed, the letter said, so too will harm come to the Stark name. One girl in the Red Keep is all that's needed to end a legacy. Arya's hand went to her dagger. Let me go to King's Landing, she whispered. Let me kill him. Robb paced in silence. He felt the weight of the crown he didn't ask for pressing on his shoulders. His father would have made the honorable choice. His bannermen wanted blood. His heart said justice. But his sister's life was the price. Catelyn stood. "We delay the execution," she said. "For now." "No," shouted Greatjon. "We already voted. This is justice, not politics." But Robb raised a hand, silencing the room. "I won't trade one life for another. Not yet. We do this the right way. We need answers before we act." That night, River Run held its breath. Joffrey was dragged back to the dungeon, but his screams echoed down the halls. "I'll have you all killed," he shouted. "I'll watch your families burn. You're all dead, do you hear me? Dead!" He was still threatening ghosts, still clinging to a crown no longer on his head. Robb sat alone in the war room, staring at a map of Westeros. His commanders argued all around him. "We should attack King's Landing now, before they kill the girl. We don't have the numbers. Then we send a rider, a spy, get her out. It's too late. She'll be watched day and night." And then, a voice cut through the room, calm, quiet, but firm. "Tyrion won't kill her." It was Arya. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "He's not like Joffrey or Cersei. He won't kill Sansa. Not unless someone forces his hand." Robb narrowed his eyes. "You sure?" "I lived there too, remember?" she said. "Tyrion protected her once. He married her, didn't he? He's smarter than all of them. He's playing for time." Robb looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Then we'll play too." 2 days later, a new raven arrived. But this one was not from Tyrion. It was from Dorne. The message was strange, formal, but dangerous in tone. "We hear the boy Joffrey is in your hands. House Martell has long memories. We seek justice too. Do not act without speaking to us." The Martells had hated the Lannisters for years, ever since Elia Martell was butchered by Gregor Clegane during Robert's rebellion. Joffrey's trial had reopened old wounds all across Westeros. Robb read the note aloud, then burned it in the fire. The war wasn't just between North and South anymore. Every house had begun watching, waiting. If Joffrey was executed, it would set a precedent no one could ignore. Even kings were not untouchable. But that was exactly what scared the lords the most, because if he could be tried, so could they. That night, a shadow slipped through the dark halls of River Run. Someone poisoned the food meant for Joffrey. The guards found it just in time, thanks only to a kitchen girl who saw the cook acting strange and reported it. The cook was an agent of the phrase, paid in gold, promised land if he silenced the boy. He confessed under torture. "He was a threat," the man sobbed. "If the Lannisters march, we all die. Better to kill him now and end it." Robb's fury was unlike anything they had seen before. "You think killing him in the dark will give us peace?" Robb growled. "It would only prove the Lannisters right." He ordered the man hanged at dawn, but the message was clear now. Someone inside his own alliance didn't want Joffrey to live another day. And worse, it wasn't just one man. The man who tried to poison Joffrey swung from the battlements of River Run at dawn, his feet twitching above the stone. The Northern and Riverland soldiers watched in grim silence, the cold wind blowing through the yard. The body hung as a warning. Justice will be done the right way, or not at all. But it didn't calm the fires beneath the walls. If anything, it made things worse. Whispers ran like wildfire through the halls. "There are traitors among us. The Freys want the boy dead. The Lannisters are bribing lords. The North is splintering. Fear has a smell, and in River Run, it was thick in the air." Robb stood by the window in his chambers, staring at the gray river flowing below. Gray wind paced restlessly beside him, ears twitching, as if he too could feel something coming. Catelyn entered quietly, a folded letter in her hand. "From the twins," she said. Robb didn't look at her. "What do they want now?" "They offer peace," she said softly, bitterness in her voice. "Lord Walder says if you execute Joffrey, he will break his alliance with the Lannisters and swear his banners to you." Robb turned slowly, disbelief on his face. "And if I don't?" She looked at the floor. "He might march against us." A silence fell between them. The walls of the castle felt tighter than before. Allies were turning, enemies were knocking, and Robb had a lion cub in chains. a cub whose death could bring war, but whose survival could cost him everything. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. Arya barged in before they could answer. "There's been a fight in the dungeon," she said out of breath. "Guards are dead. Someone tried to kill Joffrey again." Robb ran. The dungeon smelled of blood and wet stone. Two guards lay dead, throats slit. One of them was Sir Desmond Grell, an old veteran of House Tully, his sword still in hand. The other was younger. His blood soaked the straw floor. Joffrey sat in the corner of his cell, curled up like a rat, blood on his face, but not his own. He was breathing hard, his eyes wide with terror. "They came to kill me," he said. "They had knives. They said I wasn't going to see the moon again." One of the attackers was still alive, wounded and pinned against the wall by Grey Wind's teeth. He was a northern bannerman. Robb stared at him, rage boiling in his chest. "Who sent you?" he asked. The man spat blood. "We don't need a trial," he hissed. "We need a message. You think justice will win this war? The only thing these people understand is fear. Let them know we'll kill their kings in chains." Robb didn't respond. He turned and walked out, his face a mask of stone. But Arya saw his knuckles, white from clenching his fists. Later that night, a council was called. The room was heavy with shouting, finger-pointing, and threats. "The Freys are moving against us. House Bolton hasn't sent a raven in weeks. We're bleeding men just to keep one boy alive." Robb slammed his fist against the table. The room fell silent. "We are not murderer," he said, voice low. "We are not cutthroats or cowards or kings who hide behind thrones made of lies. If we kill Joffrey in the dark, then we are no better than him." "Then what do we do?" asked Lord Karstark. "Because this trial has turned our own men against us." Robb looked around the room. "We finish what we started. The trial will resume in 2 days, and the sentence will be carried out publicly, in the light of day, with the realm watching." "You think that'll scare the Lannisters?" Lord Manderly asked. "No," Robb replied. "But it might wake the realm up. If a king can be judged, maybe the rest will think twice before they burn cities and butcher children." But as the lords filed out, Catelyn stayed behind. She touched Robb's arm gently. "You are becoming more than a Stark, my son," she whispered. "You are becoming dangerous. To everyone." Robb looked at her. "Then let them be afraid." That same night, far away in King's Landing, Tyrion Lannister read a raven with shaking hands. Joffrey was still alive. The trial was resuming, and Robb Stark had declared the judgment would be final. He poured himself another glass of wine. "Seven hell," he muttered. This boy might actually pull it off. But even as he said it, he knew something was coming. Because Cersei had disappeared from the Red Keep for 2 days straight, and when she returned, she smiled. The kind of smile that only meant one thing. She had a plan. The day of judgment arrived under a dark sky. Rain had soaked the banners hanging over River Run's walls, turning the direwolf sigils of House Stark into shapeless smudges of gray and black. But still the people gathered. Lords, soldiers, small folk, even merchants who had traveled days just to see it with their own eyes. A king was about to be judged like a common criminal. Robb Stark stood in the courtyard, soaked from head to toe, his cloak heavy with water, his hair stuck to his brow. His expression was unreadable, cold, steady. Joffrey Baratheon was dragged into the courtyard in chains, flanked by 4 guards and Grey Wind pacing close behind, growling low. The boy king looked nothing like royalty now. Face bruised, hair matted, trembling from more than just the chill in the air. People threw rotten fruit. Someone spit. Another cursed his name. But Robb raised a hand, and the crowd fell silent. "This is not a lynching," he said, voice echoing off stone. "This is not a riot. This is justice." Joffrey screamed, his voice hoarse. "You think you can kill me and nothing will happen. My mother will flay you. My grandfather will burn your cities to the ground." Robb walked toward him, slow and calm. "Your mother," he said, "has already burned everything she touches. Your grandfather is fighting a war he's already lost." Then he turned to the gathered lords. "Joffrey Baratheon, born of incest, false king of the 7 kingdoms, has been found guilty of murder, treason, and cruelty by a council of northern and riverland lords. He has confessed to none of it, but the evidence is clear. The verdict stands." He paused. "The sentence is death." The crowd gasped, even though they'd expected it. Hearing it said aloud made it real. Joffrey dropped to his knees, sobbing now. "Please, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Don't kill me. Please." But there was no mercy. Robb drew his sword. Ice, the great Valyrian steel blade that once belonged to Ned Stark. The sword that had served justice in the North for generations. The same sword that had been used to behead a deserter in Winterfell, and was meant to be used with honor. He raised it slowly, the rain dripping down the blade. And then, a horn blew, not once, not twice, 3 times. Everyone froze. No one moved, until a scout came running from the tower, face pale. "Riders!" he shouted. "A host rides for River Run. Over 2,000 men, under the Lannister banner." The words dropped like a hammer. Robb lowered ice slightly. "Tywin?" he asked. The scout shook his head. "No, my lord. It's the Queen Regent. Cersei Lannister herself rides at the front." Catelyn's face turned to stone. "She's come for her son." Robb turned back to the crowd. "Take Joffrey back to his cell," he ordered. "This is not over yet." As the guards dragged the screaming boy away, thunder cracked over the hills and the first lines of the Lannister host appeared on the horizon, red and gold banners waving through the rain. But something was wrong. They weren't in formation. There were no siege towers, no battering rams, no engines of war. And at the front of it all, dressed in black leathers, riding a dark horse through the storm, was Cersei Lannister, her blonde hair soaked, her face pale but burning with fire. In her arm, she held a child, a little girl. Arya gasped first. "Sansa!" Robb's blood went cold. He stepped forward, squinting through the rain. And there she was, bound, weak-looking, but alive. The gates stayed closed, and Cersei halted just outside bow range. She raised her voice, letting the storm carry it across the distance. "Robb Stark," she called. "You have my son, I have your sister. Shall we trade corpses, or shall we speak?" No one answered. Everyone looked to Robb. His hands curled into fists. "She brought Sansa," Catelyn whispered. "She'll use her as a shield." Arya growled through her teeth. "Let me take a bow. 1 arrow and I end her." "No," Robb said. "We end this properly." He stepped forward, raised his sword high, and shouted back through the storm, "Parley!" And then, for the first time in the entire war, the Queen of Thorns and Wolves would sit across from the Lioness of the South, and only one would walk away satisfied. The war tent was quiet, save for the wind outside. The 2 armies had agreed to a day-long ceasefire. A neutral space had been set near the banks of the Tumblestone River, where wolves and lions would meet under the gray sky, soaked ground beneath them, and history pressing on both sides. Cersei Lannister entered the tent like she owned the world. She wore black, not mourning, not armor, just mourning disguised as power. Her eyes were red from rage, not tears. Her golden hair, usually styled and polished, clung wet to her cheeks. But she walked with the confidence of a woman who had never once heard the word no. Behind her, Sansa Stark followed with her hands bound and a thin cut across her cheek. Her eyes met Robb's, wide, afraid, and silently screaming for help. Catelyn gasped at the sight of her daughter. Arya gripped the table so tightly her knuckles turned white. Robb didn't blink. He stood across from Cersei, calm and still as a frozen lake. Gray Wind sat beside him, watching the queen with cold, unblinking eyes. "Unbind her," Robb said immediately, voice like steel. Cersei smiled thinly. "You have my son in chains. Don't ask for kindness?" Robb didn't move. "Unbind her, or this meeting ends now." They stared at each other for a breathless moment. Then, with a sharp nod from Cersei, one of her knights cut Sansa's ropes. Sansa stumbled forward, but Catelyn caught her, pulling her close. Her lips trembled, but she didn't cry. She had learned not to cry in front of lions. Cersei stepped to the table, placing her gloved hands upon it. "You hold my son, my king." "He is no king," Robb replied. "He was judged, found guilty. The sentence is death." And I brought your sister's head, Cersei snapped, but I figured it would be a less pleasant conversation. Arya reached for her dagger, but Robb held up a hand without looking. Cersei smiled. You've become your father, you know. All that calm, all that honor. That's what got him killed. Robb didn't flinch. And you've become your son. All that cruelty. That's what got him judged. She leaned closer. You're bluffing. Robb raised an eyebrow. Try me. Silence settled in again. Outside, distant thunder rolled. But inside the tent, there was only fire. I didn't come here to beg, Cersei said finally. I came to offer you the only thing that will keep your kingdom from burning. Peace? Robb asked, sarcasm curling in his voice. She nodded. Peace. A full withdrawal of Lannister forces from the Riverlands. King's Landing will recognize the North as an independent kingdom. You'll have your own crown. You'll rule your snow-covered wasteland however you see fit. In return, you release Joffrey. And what happens to Sansa if I don't? Cersei's smile vanished. Then I put her in the same cage you've kept my son. And when the Lannisters regroup, and we'll burn every holdfast between the twins and the wall. You forget, Catelyn said softly, stepping forward. You're not the only ones who've lost children. Cersei turned to her, voice sharp. I don't need reminders from a woman whose house is crumbling. But Catelyn didn't back down. Your son started this war with a lie and ended it with blood on his hands. You want mercy now? Ask the mother whose husband he murdered in front of a crowd. Robb raised a hand again. Silence. He stepped toward Cersei. You're offering independence, he said. But what you're really offering is a bribe. You want your son back, and you think throwing bones will buy forgiveness. Cersei's voice turned cold. What do you want, Robb Stark? What price for Joffrey's life? Robb looked her dead in the eyes. The truth. She blinked. What truth? I want it said, he replied, before the realm, that Joffrey was no king, that his claim was a lie born of incest and treachery. I want every lord and lady to hear it from your own mouth. I want the lie buried. Cersei's face twisted, a flicker of something. Rage, shame, or maybe fear. You want me to shame my house? No, Robb said. I want you to unmask it. A long silence followed. Then she whispered, You'll never get it. He leaned in close. Then you'll never get him. He turned and walked away, leaving the Queen Regent alone at the table. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air was colder, still. Cersei stood in the silence, the weight of her failure settling on her like frost. Sansa was safe, for now. But Joffrey's head still waited for judgment. And somewhere deep inside the Queen Regent's eyes, something had changed. She wasn't done. She was planning. And the next move? It wouldn't be a bargain. It would be revenge. Night returned to River Run under a strange silence. The armies were still, the rain had ended, but the air was heavier than ever before. Ravens came and went from the towers like restless spirits, carrying words between houses, threats between kings, and lies between enemies. Inside the great hall, torches burned low. Robb sat alone at the high table, a map spread before him. The candlelight trembled as if afraid of what it was illuminating. The kingdom broken into pieces, every line of ink showing another wound. He had won every battle and still felt like he was losing the war. Catelyn entered quietly. You've eaten nothing, she said. I've no stomach for it, he replied without looking up. She sighed. You did the right thing, refusing Cersei's offer. Your father would have done the same. Robb finally looked at her. My father's honor got him killed. And his death made you king, she said softly. Don't forget, honor might kill a man, but it can save his name. Before Robb could answer, the door opened again. Arya slipped in, dirt on her boots, eyes sharp. Scouts saw movement in the woods, she said. Not Lannisters, Freys. Robb's gaze hardened. How many? 200, maybe more. They're camped east of the river. Lord Walder's banners. Catelyn's hand went to her mouth. He wouldn't dare. He would, Robb cut her off. And he will. He's been waiting for a reason. He stood, rolling the map closed. Double the guards. No one in or out of the dungeon without my order. Arya frowned. You think they'll try to take Joffrey? Robb shook his head. No, they'll try to kill him. The Lannisters can't rescue their king if he's already dead. Down in the dungeon, Joffrey was pacing, muttering to himself. His voice was cracked and wild. They'll come for me, he whispered. Mother will come. She'll burn them all. Burn the wolves, the traitors, the whores. When the guards brought his food, he sneered. Enjoy this while you can. You'll hang when I'm free. The older guard only smirked. If you're free, boy, we're all dead anyway. Hours passed. The torches burned low. And then, a noise. A faint clang, like a chain dropped on stone. The younger guard turned his head just as an arrow struck him through the throat. He collapsed without a sound. The older guard barely had time to draw his sword before another arrow pierced his chest. From the shadows came 3 men, dressed in the brown and gray of House Frey. Their boots silent, their faces covered. One of them carried a dagger, dripping with oil. Kill him, the tallest one hissed. Make it quick! Joffrey backed against the wall, screaming, No! I'm the king! You can't! The dagger flashed, but before it struck, a sound ripped through the dungeon. A growl, gray wind. The dire wolf tore into the assassins like a storm given teeth. One man screamed as the wolf dragged him down. Another tried to flee, but an arrow from the hallway took him in the back. Arya's arrow. Moments later, Robb stormed in with his men, sword drawn, rain still dripping from his hair. The last assassin, bleeding from his leg, tried to crawl away. Robb kicked him onto his back and pressed his boot to the man's chest. Who sent you? Robb demanded. Walder Frey, the man gasped. He said, better the lion die by our hands than make you king of justice. Robb's jaw tightened. He looked at Grey Wind, whose muzzle was red. Take him outside, Robb ordered. Hang what's left of him from the gates. When the dungeon was cleared, Joffrey still sat shaking, clutching his knees. His royal pride was gone. Only the frightened child remained. Robb stood over him. Even your enemies protect you, boy. Not because you deserve it, but because your death could drown the realm in more blood than your life ever did. Joffrey looked up, his face streaked with tears. Then why not kill me? Why wait? Robb's voice was calm, almost cold. Because justice isn't about revenge. It's about truth, and the realm still needs to see yours. He turned to Arya. Prepare the courtyard. At dawn, we end this. Far away in her tent, Cersei Lannister stared into the fire. A raven sat on her table, its message sealed with the Stark direwolf. She hadn't opened it. She didn't need to. She knew what it said. Her reflection danced in the flames. Twisted, flickering, half devil, half queen. She poured wine, raised it to the firelight, and whispered, If they want a king's death, then I'll give them a queen's wrath. And with that, she ordered her generals to ready the wildfire. King's Landing would burn before she ever saw her son die in chains. Dawn rose blood-red over River Run. A thick mist clung to the stones, and the river ran quietly below as if holding its breath. Crows gathered on the battlements, watching with cold, black eyes. The northern and riverland soldiers filled the courtyard, shoulder to shoulder, silent. Even they, hardened by war, vengeance, and loss, felt the weight of what was coming. A king was about to die, not on a battlefield, not by poison, but by judgment. Joffrey Baratheon, once ruler of the 7 kingdoms, was dragged from the dungeon in chains. His royal clothes had been replaced with rough wool. His hair was matted, his face pale and sick with fear. He no longer screamed. He didn't beg. His mouth was open, but no sound came out. In the center of the courtyard, the execution block stood. At its side, driven into the ground, was Ice, the great sword of House Stark, the same sword that had once taken heads in the name of honor. Today it would be used again. Robb Stark stepped forward, wearing black armor marked only by the direwolf of Winterfell. His face was still, his blue eyes colder than the river. Grey Wind sat at his side, unmoving. Catelyn stood with Arya and Sansa beneath a canopy. The 2 sisters held each other's hands. They had lost a father. They had been made pawns. Today, they would see justice served. Lords and ladies from every corner of the realm stood watching, from Bear Island to the Trident. Even ravens were already flying with the message. The North was about to do the unthinkable. Robb addressed the crowd. Justice is not vengeance. This is not about one house, not about the North, the South, or who wears a crown. He turned to Joffrey. You took the throne with lies. You ruled with cruelty. You executed my father, Eddard Stark, under false charges and let his head rot on a spike. You butchered children, burned the poor, and mocked the gods. You called it rule. We call it murder. Robb stepped to the sword and drew it from the earth. It gleamed in the rising sun, ancient and silent. I carry out this sentence not as a king, but as a son. Joffrey finally found his voice. Wait, wait, please, my mother will... He stammered, but Robb raised a hand, and silence fell. He took his position. Joffrey fell to his knees, shaking. Don't, please, I'm sorry, I didn't... But the sword fell, quick, clean, final. Joffrey's head dropped to the ground, eyes wide in death. His body slumped forward, and the blood ran into the cracks of the stone. It was done. No cheers, no songs. Just silence. The North did not rejoice. The Riverlands did not smile. There was no glory in what had happened. Only the terrible, cold satisfaction of justice fulfilled. Catelyn looked at her son, and for a moment, she did not see a boy. She saw a man who had taken the weight of the realm on his shoulders and lost another part of his soul in the process. That night, fires burned along the ramparts. Ravens flew again, this time carrying the truth. The boy king was dead, executed by the Starks. The lie was ended. In King's Landing, Cersei read the raven with blood on her teeth. Her scream echoed through the halls of the Red Keep like the wail of a dying animal. She threw goblets. She slapped the maester. And then she stood still for an hour, staring into her son's empty bed. When she moved again, it was to the cellars, where the wildfire was stored. Burn it all, she whispered. If the world cannot mourn a lion, then it will burn with one. But the wildfire never reached the streets. Tyrion stopped it. He arrested the pyromancer. He sent the remaining wildfire to the sea. And when Cersei screamed treason at him, he looked her in the eye and said, "One dead king is enough. You don't get to end the world because yours didn't live." Cersei was locked in her chambers after that, but the damage was done. The people of the realm had seen it now. A king judged, a lie ended, a sword raised not for conquest, but for truth. Back in Riverrun, Robb stood alone on the ramparts as snow began to fall. Winter had come. Sansa joined him, quiet. "Do you think they'll ever forgive us?" she asked. He didn't look at her. "No, but they'll remember. And Cersei," he sighed, "she'll come again, with fire or with poison, one way or another." Arya stood behind them. "Let her. We'll be ready." They stood together in silence. 3 children of a broken house. But they were no longer children. They were wolves, and the realm would never forget what they had done.